Good afternoon, Husky fans. Thanks for tuning into the 9th episode of Husky Dash with your hosts at Nathan Mathisen and myself at 9 3/4. Today we're going to be diving into the depth of our receiving core here at Husky football, who you can expect to see in the trenches next month, and who we think needs to step up for the Huskies to succeed this season. As a reminder, please feel free to drop a comment or even just a hello, and we'll make sure we cover our segments and anything else that comes up in the chat. Now then, for dog snacks. These are some of the biggest news pieces around the week, around the country. Most recently, in fact, where Nick Saban just tested positive for COVID-19. Wish him well. Hope he gets better soon. NCAA waives all eligibility requirements for the bowl games for the 2020-2021 season. LSU versus Florida was postponed after a surge in COVID-19 cases in Florida. And after the Friday press conference, we've learned that the QB battle has not finished and that Coach Lake agrees that the parents of players are looking like the first group of people who should take the stands and should be allowed to take the stands for games for in-person attendance. Sorry, that came out really weird. Into our first segment, though, on the wide receiving core here at UW football. We've had some pretty big losses. We've had some pretty key additions, and we have some pretty big name returners as well. And we're just going to be jumping into who we think is going to be starting, who we think is going to be in that rotation. Nathan, who do you think is standing out to you right now?
Yeah, first, just talking about the big losses. We lost Aaron Fuller and Andre Bocellia. They both kind of showed glimpses of being something more than just a role player kind of on the team, but key drops in key situations kind of always was the story with them. So UW's kind of looking for the next great receiver. I mean, in my opinion, we haven't had a star wide receiver tandem since 2016 with Dante Pettis and John Ross, who combined for almost 2,000 yards and 32 touchdowns in 1 year. So let's hope that comes up soon. And the guy that I'm looking at is probably going to be Terrell Bynum, just for the wide receiver one, especially to start the year. He's the most veteran player on their team at wide receiver, as they actually only have 2 seniors and 2 juniors. Last year, Terrell Bynum, he had 31 catches, 368 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. So he wasn't really, that impressive, but he's got the experience that will probably lock him in as the number 1 receiver. The other 2 guys that I'm looking at, though, is Puka Nacua, and, of course, we've got Ty Jones returning from an injury that he had. So do you want to start talking about someone?
I think Ty Jones had that wrist injury.
Last year he had a wrist injury that caused him to only play in like 4 games or something.
Yeah, in good news, though, his last full season that he played, so his sophomore year, he was running 491 yards and 6 touchdowns as a sophomore. So that's really good news to have him back. Terrell Bynum too. I mean, he doesn't have like the best like flashy stats like catches, touchdowns, receiving yards. However, I think really interesting was that in his last 6 games, he was averaging 55 yards a game. It's like not the best, but I mean like it's doable to get things done. But the one I was really excited about was that Fuller and Cade Otton, those 2 tight ends, are the only 2 people on the team with lower drop rate percentages, but he currently has the highest first down percentage based off of catches on the UW team. And he also has a disgusting broken tackle rate. And so I'm really excited to see him come in. I definitely think he's going to be starting in that receiving core, if not within that rotation. Whether or not he gets started at the wideout or in the slot, I mean, that remains to be seen with where these other guys come in, like Puka. You have Marquise Spiker, you have Austin Osborne, you have all of these new guys that have been coming in. And these guys are big, they're fast. And like, it's one of those groups, I feel like, for recruiting classes for this year, coming with all these new guys where they don't really need that size or that like endurance or that conditioning aspect as much. When you see the other prospects coming in, these guys really just need technique. I mean, Jalen McMillan, number 11 receiving prospect in the country, number 67 overall. He's been compared to Keenan Allen with the guy with his route running and the speed he currently has. We've got a guy named Rome, number 39 for the receiving group in the nation, has been quoted multiple times as having blistering speed with a 6'3", 205-pound frame. Like that's as a guy coming in, that's insane. I think. And that's really good to have, I think, coming out of a really funky season like this one that we're about to have. And having these older guys, definitely seeing Terrell Bynum get a lot of snaps in there, seeing Puka get a lot of snaps in there. And then from there, it's really going to be who comes in at 3, who comes in at 4. And I think that's where the big debates are. I think you're pretty much in agreement with me there.
Yeah, I think the key thing is really like the depth. The Huskies have such great depth at wide receiver. And really the reason that I picked as my top 3, Ty Jones, Aaron Fuller, and then Puka Nacua is just because they're kind of veterans. They kind of have the most experience on the Husky team. Puka Nacua being the least of that, as it's only his second year. But in his freshman year, Nacua kind of shined. I mean, he averaged 24 yards per catch. He had some key catches, especially against the Oregon game. He had a touchdown that put him up 14 in the third quarter. We all know how that ended, sadly, though. And especially the Huskies are a team that in recent history, they've kind of favored veterans over these young guys, which maybe now with Jimmy Lake, that might change. And I kind of hope it changes. Because you mentioned them, Jalen McMillian and Rome Odunze. They are 2 4-star freshmen who I think are going to have great college careers and maybe even great NFL careers. I look at Jalen McMillian. You kind of compared him to Keenan Allen. I almost compare him to CeeDee Lamb. I think they're very similar. They have kind of similar measurables, both about 6'1", 6'2", 190 pounds. And I watched CeeDee Lamb's high school highlight tape and then Jalen's high school highlight tape. And what they both excelled at is after the catch, they're very elusive and very hard to take down. So maybe Jalen McMillian will play like CeeDee Lamb. I hope he does, because that would be great. But looking at the veterans, you've got to probably think that they'll have a key role, especially early on.
Yeah, I agree with the Bynum pick. I agree with the Nacua pick. The one that I'm definitely more worried about, not worried about, that I don't think is as safe or as strong as a pick, is Ty Jones. I mean, one of the things that really stood him out in the 2019 season when he was playing in the years before that was that he just had insane size compared to the rest of our receiving core. But now that we have this fresh talent coming in that is on par, now I'd almost argue on par or even slightly more experience with this coaching staff. Just because they've been getting those practice reps in where Ty Jones has missed a lot of these practices in those games last year. And he hasn't had any, no one on the team has experience with the new pro style offense that they're putting in. And now that his size is no longer a unique factor for him in the positive sense, I'm wondering if with Jimmy Lake and John Donovan coming, having their new positions and their, pretty obvious enjoyment and love of the sport and their love for fresh talent coming in and picking up the slack when needed, because these guys comes out of the gate just so competitive. Seeing these other guys, those two 4-star prospects, Sawyer Roccanelli, probably not gonna be playing this year, but he'll be in the mix absolutely towards spring ball and next year. I'm gonna be looking out for these 3 guys to be stealing reps, not getting put in there. I'm looking for these guys to compete and start taking reps away from the older guys, and that's one of the things I think that's going to really make our group stand out, is that we have such an odd mix of veterans and fresh talent coming in, and most of them are on a comparable level, with the exceptions of Bynum and Nacua, who have that pretty nice experience. One guy we haven't talked about, though, I don't know if you read up on him too much, was Marquise Spiker. The coaches seemed pretty excited about him coming out of spring ball last year. With the 20 pounds of weight he put on over the summer in muscle, and the fact that he just has 2 years of experience with the coaching staff, with the offense, with the defense. I think he'd be he's a definite dark horse in there.
Yeah, I think he could be. I think his stats, don't quote me, but I think he had something around 3 catches, 97 yards last year. So not a lot of production, but what I saw is a deep threat, which you can always use a guy like that who can get behind the safeties and make a big play. And hearing that he's put on some more muscle, he could have a good role this year.
Yeah, it's cool to realize too, that a lot of the times, as I'm sure you know, a lot of the times receivers don't have to have don't have to be targeted to do things or to be useful. And just the fact that Marquise Spiker would be on the field, known as a deep threat, he could become known as a very scary deep threat. Just putting him on the field in the slot, in the wideout on the short side of the far side of the field. I mean, that's scary enough for secondaries who might not be bolstered up because of COVID or who might not have the experience back there, as many teams are losing players left and right to the combine, to COVID, to just not willing or wanting to play. Expect him to definitely be a force to be reckoned with eventually on the Husky offense. I guess that leads us to the O-line, having time to pass that ball, unless you had anything else to say on that.
No, I think we touched the wide receiver topic good. And in chat, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them.
Yes, please. With the O-line, 3 huge losses, very sadly. We have Trey Adams. He was our left tackle, 2016 and 2019, all Pac-12 selection. We had Jared Hilbers. He was a left tackle until Adams came back from a injury.
Yeah, he had a back injury in 2019 or 2018, a back injury.
He had a knee injury too before that, didn't
Trey
he?
Adams' story is loads of potential, but he just was never able to reach it due to knee injury in 2017 and then another back injury in 2018. It really inhibited him. I mean, he was listed as like a great left tackle. Some called him like a dancing bear because he's like 6'6", 340-ish pounds, and he can move great too. So he's a dancing bear, but the mobility from his knee injury and his back injury really hurt his career.
Yeah, so that's our 2 starting tackles previously just gone, and then our insane center Nick Harris.
Nick Harris's story is pretty wild. I mean, he came into UW basically unrecruited, and what does he do? Day one, he's basically put in as a starter at left guard or right guard, and he starts there for 2 years, and then the center leaves, and he's the starting center the last 2 years at UW. And then heck, even in the NFL, he's the starting center for the Browns, I'm pretty sure right now. He's wherever he goes, he starts.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we still had him so he'd be starting now. Yeah. But we're gonna have to figure out how to replace that position. 2 returners that I'm gonna argue don't really matter that they're returning because they're not returning to their previous positions. We have Jackson Kirkland, who got moved to left tackle. Kid's huge, 6'7", 322 pounds. Not the biggest guy on the team, though.
A note on Jackson Kirkland, though, is that he actually lost around 25 pounds. He's down to 295 in order to be more mobile at his new possession of left tackle. So he's 6'7", 295, which that'll make him more agile at left tackle, protecting the blind side of the quarterback.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's good news for us, honestly. It means he's embracing that left tackle position. He's definitely trying to work on that agility and that increased movement from where he was previously. And then Luke Wattenberg, obviously coming back. Plans are, I'm pretty sure, to move him to center.
I think they're slipping him into where Nick Harris was.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to see once that first game comes around how well those two kind of take control of that O-line. But then we have all these guys who are in that depth chart ready to just, fight for a spot and compete. Yeah,
UW's offensive line, I think, even with these 3 losses, I think they're at a good spot. Josiah Bronson, one of the D linemen on UW, actually, he believes that the Husky O-line is the best in the Pac-12. He mentioned MJ Ale, who this is MJ Ale's second year. Some people have him slotted at the left guard position. I think that's a good spot for him. He's 6'6", 352, so a little tall. But Josiah Bronson says that MJ Ale is a tough competitor at practice every day. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Overall, yeah.
Oh, I have a funny story about him, actually, just a little tangent. On Twitter, I think he officially changed his preferred name to his first last, which is Ulumu Ale, instead of going by his MJ nickname. I think that came out on Twitter like a couple days ago from Varel, Mike Varel on Twitter. It just came out of nowhere, changed up on his UW football page. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, he's going to be there. I guess just piggybacking off of you, the one downside to Ale is that he has very, very limited football experience. He hasn't had that much time playing. He doesn't have the long track record of a lot of these other kids who started Pee Wee middle school. But if you can get that pass blocking technique down, which I think is a lot harder to do than run blocking, he's going to be a big key to making sure our O-line's successful.
Yeah, the Husky O-line's kind of an oddball. I mean, they're very big. I think the average size, like the predicted starting offensive line, is 6'5" and a half, 321 pounds. There's a lot of big guys. And another guy who's kind of not prototypical for the position that he's slotted at playing, the right tackle, Victor Kernay. He's
Kern,
6 foot. Yeah, he's only 6'3", which you think of a tackle like Jackson Kirkland, 6'6", Trey Adams, 6'6", usually a big guy. But Kern's a small guy. He's not prototypical. But the good news about him is he actually got some playing time last year at the tackle position, especially in the bowl game against Boise State. He really showed some good promise. So I think that he might be a great right tackle for the Huskies and really contribute right off from game one.
Yeah, again, same story as Ale for me, is that he just needs to work on those like pass protection specifics for that tackle position. I know Ale is getting lucky, is looking to get slotted in pretty much anywhere he can find a position. I think he's being groomed towards guard right now. But yeah, Kern, if he already has some pretty great footwork. I mean, like his size doesn't really matter. I mean, Scott Huff absolutely loves unorthodox line setups. So good footwork already. Just needs to work on that pass protection. If he's up to snuff, then I mean, hey, please slot him in. Give our quarterback some time. Some other great some great pickups for guard. At least we have Henry Baini Valu, 6'6", 320. Like guy's big.
Yeah.
He was a top 200 recruit when he came in. The only thing that's a little worrisome is that he occasionally looked a little slower lost last year when having more intricate or detailed assignments. He looked a little slow off the ball, like he wasn't exactly sure who he was supposed to be blocking or where he was supposed to be going. If he can get that to click, I think he's an absolute shoe-in for one of the guard positions with Ale right behind him for 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think that's with Banu Balu. That's another one where just with experience, more playing time, more practice at the guard position, that he'll learn all these complex blocking schemes like cross blocks and zone blocks, traps, pulling. He'll learn all that and he'll be better for it. I mean, he got kind of thrown into the fire, I guess you could say, last year, not having a bunch of experience at guard. And I think in the long term, that's going to help him out, help him with his technique. And I mean, you mentioned it with his size, 6'6", 330. He's got great potential at the guard spot.
Yeah, and then I think it'd be interesting to point out too for the center position. I mean, Wattenberg's pretty much a shoe-in there. He was with that O-line from last year, so he has that experience. He'll be able to step up and be a leader. But right behind him, we have Cole Norgard and Mateo Mele. And both of those guys have had some interesting success, or mixed success, I should say, at the spot. Norgard was getting groomed for it before he was injured, and then Mele was pushed into it. And from there, they both were just receiving, or both were just, I guess, producing some pretty mixed results. Not exactly the consistency anybody would be looking for there.
Yeah, I think that the center position, filling in the shoes of Nick Harris, it's going to be the hardest of the three positions to fill back, just because center is so important, from calling out like the offensive line schemes with blitzes coming, and just you have to know the offense so well and know the blocking protection schemes so well. That's why Luke Wattenberg is a great pick for the center spot. I mean, he's a senior. He's the most veteran on the offensive line, I believe. So he knows all these schemes, and he should do great at the center position if he can just get used to, because he's not a prototypical center. He played guard last year. He's actually started at guard the last 2 seasons. So if he can just get used to snapping the ball within blocking, which is a little bit different if you've done it before.
Yeah.
Then I actually look at Miles Murrow, true freshman. I really like him. I think he could get groomed by Luke Wattenberg and be the starter next year.
Yeah, he's actually one of the highest. I was just going to touch on him. He's one of the
Mhm.
highest offensive lineman recruits we've had in ever. Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, he's one of the highest recruits we've ever had on offensive line. I just don't know where he'd slot in unless he's like just insanely talented or gifted right when he shows up.
That's why I figure that he'll probably take a year back up, learn behind. I mean, he was the number 2 ranked guard in the class. That's
a big grab. One thing I wouldn't be shocked or surprised to see, I suppose, would be if we had like a really big jumbo package or something come in, maybe towards the end of a game, seeing him get some reps just to get some experience in there. But I mean, you have to know that guy's getting so many reps right now during fall camp. He's set up for success.
Talking about jumbo packages, a guy that I am a big fan on is Nate Kalepo. He's a tackle, 6'6", 342 pounds. Talk about a jumbo package. He is a big guy, and he's got great potential. I think he's another guy who can learn behind Jackson Kirkland for 1 year and then be slotted in the 2021 season as a starter.
Yeah, I actually see someone working right there alongside him. That I think with a little less weight, a little more height, might be a better pick in the long term. Julius Bulow, 6'8", 330. But again, same story as Kalepo. These guys are all sitting on the same boat with just like so much talent, so much size, and then just zero experience. Like none of these guys have a ton of experience out there under the lights and stuff. So it's gonna be a really big talking point actually after this first game to see how well all of these different position groups, offensive line, defensive line, all those guys are fitting together. Speaking of that first game and the rest of the season, you said, I actually don't remember who your pick was for this next segment. Who needs the best performance for season-long team success?
I look at it at the running back position. Richard Newton I'm picking. He's a sophomore. He showed great promise freshman year. I mean, he averaged 4.3 yards per carry. He had 10 touchdowns on just 117 rushes. So he's kind of a power back, wrecking ball type guy. Give him the ball and he's going to run you over. I think you talked about it earlier. You're a fan of the kind of old school, grinded out running games. And I think Richard Newton's a perfect guy for the Husky offense, especially with this O-line that we were just talking about. They're big guys. This Husky team, especially having a young quarterback, a new quarterback, we don't yet know who it's going to be. So if Richard Newton can have a great year, be someone for the quarterback to lean on, and be that guy on 2nd and 4, get a first down, on 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, just hand him the ball and he'll get that 1 yard, then that'll help out the Huskies immensely.
Yeah, I mean, running back ends up being the heartbeat of the offense right after the lineman there, and if you're consistently getting third and 2s and converting, if you're getting 4th and inches, 4th and 1s, 4th and 3s, and you're converting those, that is killer for a defense, and you build so much momentum, even if like the crowd may not notice, or if the casters don't even notice, the guys commentating on the game live. On the field, when you lose out on a 4th and inches and they get that first down, you are heartbroken. You're like, damn, I've got to stand out here for another set of downs. Like, I don't get water. I thought my helmet was going to come off in about 5 seconds. So seeing that as your pick definitely makes sense. And I hope that guy does well for our team.
Yeah, I think the Huskies have had in recent years, such great running backs. And you look back to the 2010 seasons with Chris Polk, such a power back kind of. Great memories of him going up against the Cougars, rushing for 200 yards, just obliterating the Cougars. Then you move to Bishop Sankey, having some great years as a Husky. And then, of course, the Huskies leading rusher, leading all running statistics in Myles Gaskin. Just some great running backs in recent years. And I think Richard Newton can be that next great Husky running back. He's got the potential. I mean, he's 6 feet tall, a good running back size, 210 pounds. He's got power. I mean, this is his 3rd year on the team. He redshirted his freshman year. So he has the experience. He's got the great offensive line. They're running a pro-style offense, so they're going to be running the ball quite a bit. I think it all lines up for Richard Newton to have a great year. I mean, he's playing these 6 weeks, he's going to be playing. I think a realistic number for him could be 700 rushing yards. I think 700 rushing yards would be a good number. I think let's just give him 8 touchdowns. I think that's going to be around his season. 700 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. A true leader on the field for the Huskies, I think.
Yeah, I was actually going to argue that it would end up being who the quarterback was, because I thought we were going to find that out last Friday. And then just had to adjust everything because Jimmy Lake all but said straight up to the camera, like, yeah, we don't have one picked yet. I mean, I think he actually did say that during the news conference. Like, yeah, we don't have one yet. It's still a battle. Like, you're still going to town at it. I was going to say the O-line, keeping in theme with offense, but then you can't really pick 5 people for a spot. That's one. So I ended up with still breaking the rules twice, actually, now, because I'm not in an offensive theme anymore. I was going with the 2 inside linebackers that you actually informed me were the coach's pick if the season were to have started today. Edefuan Ulofo-Shio and Jackson Sermon. Those 2 guys, if they can step up, like I talked about it when on defense, like how heartbreaking those 3rd and 1s, those 4th and inches can be when they're just constantly converting and driving you backwards. Seeing these 2 guys step up and be able to kind of take control of that defense and make sure things like that don't happen, I think are going to be really, really, really important when you have, is he a redshirt sophomore, normal sophomore for your running back?
He's a redshirt sophomore. This is his 3rd year.
Redshirt sophomore, the possibility of a quarterback being picked for a starter that doesn't have experience in Husky Stadium, the fresh O-line with a lacking of experience, not a whole lack of it. I think a lot of the momentum, a lot of that drive and fire for the Huskies, at least for the first few games, is going to be coming from the defense. And seeing how much the inside linebackers struggled from last year and what guys who are returning, if they can see that delta, that change from last year where like middle of the field was wide open for teams, if that can get adjusted and seeing that huge difference on the defensive side of the ball, I think that'll make enough of a punch to carry us throughout the season and just go 7-0.
Yeah, I think the middle linebacker position is going to be a key spot. They've struggled in recent years with missing